Hi, everyone. I'm here today. My name is Ann Welker. I'm Suffolk County Legislator for the 2nd District, which is the town of East Hampton and most of the town of Southampton. I'm here today with East Hampton Town Historian, Mr. Hugh King, and Mr. Dick White, unofficial Montauk historian. You don't have a proper title, do you?
Treasurer of the Historical
Oh,
Society.
yes, that's a very proper
Don't give him a
title.
title, he'll want to get paid.
He volunteers for so many things. So can you two please just remind us why history is so important?
Well, I think it gives us a reason why East Hampton, Montauk, and Amagansett are the way they are. And why a lot of people want to keep it that way and resist the change that inevitably comes.
It's true. And Hugh, you're really good at keeping it alive through presenting at the town board and the village board meetings, right? On every week basis?
Yes, the village and the town allow me to, I'm the village historian too, so that's why I speak at the village board meetings and I try to talk about some aspect of local history. Because as Dick said, the more we talk about our local history, we can get rid of that terrible term, the Hamptons. We're not the Hamptons. Right now, we're in Wainscott, right? You live in Southampton, Dick lives in Montauk, I live in Amagansett, the lighthouse is in Montauk, the Pollock Krasner house is in Springs. So if we could talk about each of our hamlets and its history, we can get rid of that upscale, fashionable, trendy, and unaffordable Hamptons moniker. And I think the other thing that's important about history, as Dick said, we just didn't show up here. There's a way that we got here. And one of the ways we got here is we didn't build houses along the beach, you know? We didn't put, we put oil in the swamps to get rid of the mosquitoes. Not a good idea. We dehumanized people years ago, telling them they're not like us, so we could treat them badly. And we haven't learned so much from that. So if we could look back to see what people did correctly or incorrectly, it might help us go forward. What do you think?
I like that, Hugh.
Yeah.
Right? Indeed.
Okay, does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. Now, you brought a few pictures with you today, so maybe if we could bring up Promised Land, and Hugh, if you would just tell us a little bit about how Promised Land got its name
Well,
and
Dick can
where
talk about
it
this
is,
too.
and, oh,
but
yes, I was
But
gonna
I
say,
live on Abrams Landing Road in Amagansett, and it's about a whiff away from where Promised Land was.
a whiff.
Yes, because when they began, they caught a fish called menhaden. And in order to process the fish, they had to boil it to get the oil out that they used. And then they ground up the carcass to use for fertilizer. But when they were boiling the fish, if the wind was right, it came right down my road. And you could actually, if the wind was right, you could smell it in East Hampton Village. Why is it called? So what happened is these fisheries, these fishing stations grew up in the late 1880s. So by the 1900s, it was really a major business. The reason I'm telling you this, however, because it has to do with the Devon colony, okay, which you'll see in a minute. And why is it called Promised Land? Well, it could be one of those Bonic nicknames. For example, there's somebody called Speedy in our town. He's not Speedy. See, he got the nickname. He's the opposite of that. Now, why is it called Promised Land? Well, they needed a name for the post office down there. So is it a promised land because of all the money you could make in the fishing industry? Or was it promised land because of the smell that came there that wasn't so great? So they would give you that kind of a name. So I don't know. What do you think?
All I know about Promised Land is living in Montauk and growing up there in the 40s. We knew when the fish factory was working because if the wind was right, you could
Wow.
smell it on Main Street in Montauk, and
Wow.
it was very perfumey, believe me.
So you saw some of the boats that they used to go out on, and they surround the fish, and then they bring them in. They also flew airplanes over the water to see where the fish were. So it was a thriving business until 1 year or 2 years, the fish disappeared. And then we come to the Devon colony. Now, the Devon colony, I don't know if you have those pictures.
Maybe we could pull up the Devon, there you go.
There we go. That's Richard Levering on the left. He built one of the first houses down there. And that guy is William Rowe. So what happens is, and I think Arthur Benson may have something to do with this, Dick. In early 1900, these three wealthy families from Cincinnati came to Amagansett to go hunting. And they hunted up in that area where the fish factories were. And it's really high land. And they realized that there's nobody around here. Nobody lives here. Well, nobody lived there because when the railroad went through, it scared all the animals. So it wasn't good hunting. And then those steam engines would start fires, along the side of the road.
Yep.
And so they decided, we're going to build some summer houses here. And maybe they were, because of Arthur Benson, built those 6 houses in Montauk, they may have got the same idea that they could build these houses. So there they are. They had no heat in them, okay? So, and there's the little railroad that they had there. The cement plant was down by the water, and they brought the cement up on that railroad, and they built those houses. A lot of them were out of stucco. And when they built them, the fish factory wasn't open because the fish had disappeared. Guess what happened?
Do tell.
The fish came back. The fish factory opened up again. Those people had to sit there in their house and then have that smell come. They sued the fish factories trying to get them to stop. They lost. And then the fish, I know, they closed down in the 60s and 70s, the fish factory, I think. It went away. So those two places have a relationship, and they're right around where I lived. And the third thing about Promised Land is every year in April, I used to take Loretta, we used to drive down there to see when the osprey came back. Because there were 2 or 3 osprey nests down there.
Yep.
There's one by the fish factory, the old fish factory, and there's one down toward Lazy Point. And you get there in April, and there they'd be, because they came back, don't they come back to the same
About
nest?
the same time every year, yeah.
Yeah, same time. That's a sign of spring, when you see the osprey.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
I usually think about it as St. Patrick's Day. That's about when the osprey come back, but you're right, sometimes it's
Well,
later as well. for
Speaking of
sure.
St. Patrick's Day, you just have to go to
Montauk for
Montauk.
the 50-something parade.
It's the 50th anniversary?
Well, it's more than that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And Joey Blocker is gonna be the Grand Marshal this year.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that a sign of spring when the
It's the beginning of the summer season in Montauk.
yeah.
St. Patrick's Day is the beginning of the
Yeah,
summer
that's
season.
when it starts to open up. Of course, it's only weekends until school gets out, which is late June, but it perks it up.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely does.
Have you been Grand Marshal?
Yes, I was Grand Marshal, yes.
That's quite a title.
And I've lived through it. It's, and a lot of my friends were all there also, including Jimmy Hewitt, who
Jimmy-
graduated with us.
Jimmy Hugh was in our class at East Hampton High School.
Yeah,
He owned the Shagwan, right?
Dagon Restaurant.
And then Rush Myers?
And then Rush Myers,
Is
yes.
that it?
Yeah. You know, before you mentioned,
that
back
right?
to Promised Land, you mentioned Menhaden. I had never heard that expression until later years. It was always bunker fishing.
Bunker fishing, that's right, yeah. Bunker fishing,
And it was Smith Milk Company.
owned it, yeah.
And I was told that Smith bought all that property on the ocean because he was afraid if he didn't buy it, the people who would build there would complain about the smell.
Oh, yeah.
And so he owned it all. Well, fortunately, as it turned out, when Perry Duryea Jr. was Speaker, he bought Smith Milk, all the land. And so that became a state park now, and all that oceanfront property is
Oh, wow.
state park.
On Napeak,
On
that
the
whole
pig,
stretch,
yeah.
on the ocean, on the south side.
Which was formerly Smithfield owned, well, they owned all of that land.
Around the ocean.
Yeah, right,
Oh,
right
I
to
never
the
knew that.
ocean.
That's great.
Right?
That
Don't
was a
know.
smart move.
Yeah,
And of course, if it's 18, you want to go to the lighthouse, people in East Hampton, you take a trip to the lighthouse, it's an all-day event. But if you want to take a trip from the East Hampton Village to the lighthouse, you have to stop at the Hunting Inn, and get some mosquito balm, some wax or something. Then you could, on the way to Amagansett, you'd stop, cut off a branch from a tree, have that in your hand, because when you went down to Nappig, you met the largest, most hostile mosquitoes on the face of the earth. They used to put a netting over the horse when
Yeah.
they went down there, right?
There was an article written by a girl who was the daughter of a lighthouse keeper, and she was saying how her father used to go to Sag Harbor on Saturdays so that he could go to church on Sunday, and they would go by horse and wagon. And she talked about going across Nappag, and she would have to be under a blanket, and the horse would have a thing over him because of the mosquitoes, and the father would be completely under something. It must have been terrible,
And they used to stop at First House too, sometimes.
right?
First House is gone. It's
Right, I was-
gone, yeah. burned.
Where was First House?
Well, there's a road called Cemetery Road, which intersects Old Montauk Highway. And just a little bit east of that, we found the foundation and the well last year. And we're hoping to improve the site, but we have to go through the state of New York. It's on state park property. And we have to have the state park people do the digging around and, what do you call it? when they
Excavating or the
Yeah,
archaeological?
Archaeological. And locate the exact location of the foundation. My dream is to rebuild it. And I talked to the supervisor about it and asked her if she was up for buying the 50 gallons of rum and the barrel of nails necessary.
How'd she
And
feel about that?
And she's non-committal.
I'm gonna ask her that now at the next town board meeting,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
That's my first
But
question.
that's in the record, in the town, the trustees' records, that when they built it, they gave the contractor a barrel of rum and a barrel of nails and some wood,
And
and
off we went?
off they went and
Yeah,
built the
But
house.
the first house, the road divides, right? You got Old Montauk Highway and New Montauk, and then you go on Old, right? A little ways.
A little
And
way,
then you see that road that goes in where the cemetery is?
we go past Cemetery Road and you'll see a
Okay.
faint pathway that goes up. We don't want to really
Yeah.
expose it and get a lot of people, curiosity people in there, until we get it finalized with the archaeology dig and so forth.
So if you get that done, you'll have the first, second, and third houses
Right.
still
Which is
standing.
amazing.
Yeah, isn't that
And do you
great?
know why
Which is
they were
amazing.
called that? First, second, and third?
When they were built?
No, it was the first house from East Hampton, and the second house from East Hampton, and the third house.
Third house was far.
Yeah, and it was
Yes.
the only houses there too, right, when they first built?
At that time, but then later came the Seven Sisters, and of course, the Montauks lived out there on East Lake and
Yeah,
around.
when you drove, people are real, every April, they took the cattle, sheep, and horses and sent them to Montauk,
Yeah.
right? To
Mhm.
pasture. So when you got to First House, I think the guy at First House was responsible to not letting any of the animals head back east,
Most
right?
likely, yeah.
West, I mean.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
Second House, they had the sheep, I think were at Shep, and then the cattle and the horses were at Third House, is that?
Could be,
Yeah.
I don't really know.
You weren't there? I thought you were there when they did that.
Do you know about the rum? I was next to the barrel of rum.
Yeah, I believe that.
We've talked about several different spots in East Hampton, Amagansett, and Montauk. Do you guys have like a favorite historical site or spot or memory? That one that you're either associated with through all your work, like Montauk Lighthouse or Third House
Not
or
a favorite, I
Ah.
have many favorites.
what's one or two or
Well,
three?
naturally, the lighthouse and second house and the Fisher House. And my personal one would be the memory of the last cattle drive where we actually got the cows off the train and drove them down Edgemere. And it's hard to tell people about it because so many buildings have been built, including the post office and the motel and the ball field, where we went across with 80 head of cattle,
Wait a minute, when did you do this?
1953.
Okay, a while back, yeah.
Wasn't last week.
Yeah.
But that's a fond memory of mine because it was the last time it was done.
It was the
And-
last time, that was it?
Yeah, after that, they just trucked them in.
But you were part of that.
Yeah,
Wow.
Jimmy
yeah.
Hewitt, was he part of that?
Jimmy Hewitt,
Yeah.
Craigie Tuttle,
Yeah.
John Likey, on the Dickinson boys.
There's a picture of them on horses. I don't know if
Yes,
it's the
yes.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's, you can't recreate it, so it's all up there.
Well, we have three national historic landmarks in our town. The Montauk Point Lighthouse, the Pollock Krasner House in Springs, and then the Thomas and Mary Nimmo Moran House in the Village. So there's three, they're national historic landmarks. We have other places that are designated as historic, but they're not a landmark because you got to go through a whole process, to do that. But my favorite is almost any place you can go, you'll see something. For example, in Amagansett, you go down to Atlantic Avenue, you see the 1902 Amagansett Life Saving Station, where the Nazi saboteurs landed in 1942. There it is. It's on its same spot, right? We have Home Sweet Home Museum where I work, next door to the Mulford Farm, which dates back to the 18th century. And then the other thing that's happening that's made me happy is David Rattray and Donna Marie Barnes have a project called the Plain Sight Project, where they're documented and have documented over 600 people who were enslaved in our town. Everyone thinks slavery only happened at Gone with the Wind. No, New York was huge. And what that project has done, it's changed the narrative. We used to say, Josiah Hobart built the Mulford House. No, he didn't. He had it built. Who built it? Who cut the wood? Who went to Gardiner's Island to get the wood for the windmills and brought it over here? Probably enslaved people. So we're able to tell a new story now. Not a new story, but a more accurate part of the story. I think that's the thing that I'm pleased with, that we can do that now. With research, you couldn't do this years ago.
That's amazing, because you and accuracy are not close friends.
Oh, God, that's so mean. It's so mean they did that. That's a great one. Say that again.
You and accuracy are not close
I'm gonna
friends.
use that on somebody else now and say that I thought of it.
Yeah,
I usually say most of what I said is true.
yes.
See, because, well, we have found out, you have to be careful. You may know something 15 years ago, but then new information comes, you were incorrect. And that's okay, as long as you admit it, But, and everybody doesn't know everything. I think the most important thing I've learned is, where can we go to get the information? Like, who can we talk to, right? So if you want to know something about the lighthouse and the concert down there, I tell them to go talk to Dick, you see. Or if you wanted to know something about the Fisher House, maybe you'd go see the Mia
Billy Aiken.
and Billy Aiken, you see. So what you learn is where to go to get the information, and you can't always find it, and that's okay. We don't have the answer to everything.
One of the things that happens to me periodically is I'll say, I'm gonna check that with Frank Tuma. Oh, no, he died.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, now I'm the older, and all the people that I would go to have gone on.
So that's why it's good you're doing this program, because they can show it after Dick and I are left and find out how much we lied.
Oh, dear.
It'll be too late. We'll be done.
East Hampton Library, though, has quite a historic collection. Do
Yes.
you ever use that?
Oh, all the time.
Constantly.
Oh,
Where do you think these pictures came from? I went to the Long Island room of the library. I have Carlton's book. I got these out of Carlton's book,
Right.
but I don't know how to email anything. So I went there with the pictures, and Megan Barsis scanned them and sent them to Irene. So, yeah, besides doing those kinds of things, it's a fountain of information in there. I mean, you can find out so many things. And they want to help you. When you go in there, they say, what can I do to help you? They want to help you. A lot of places, I don't have time this week, you didn't make an appointment, blah, blah, blah. No, you go in there, you call them ahead of time, and you want to know, if you want to tell them what you need, and they're right on it there. And Montauk has an historical society room, right, the library?
The new library, the new edition, has a wonderful archive room. And they have someone that sits outside it, and it's always locked, and you have to have a reason for going in there.
Of course.
And we have some really one-of-a-kind things in there. For example, we have the original document that George Washington, it's a piece of paper and it's written on both sides. And on one side, it's what George Washington wrote and signed, and on the other side, the proprietors, and it was about buying the lighthouse and the
right.
conditions that went along with it, because believe it or not, it was not a popular item locally, because first of all, it was going to be federal property, which meant, in their terms, the people from Connecticut could come and sit upon the land. Well, that wasn't so good. And the other thing was, a lighthouse is going to keep the ships from crossing and shipwrecking, which then cut into their business, because they would take the cargo from the shipwreck. And well, if there's no shipwreck, there's no
Yeah,
cargo,
instant yard sales.
right?
Yeah.
It's one way of looking at it.
So anyway, the proprietors had conditions, and Washington agreed to them and so forth.
And you have that in the local history room?
And the
Not at the
archive
lighthouse,
room,
not at the lighthouse. Yeah.
we have a very nice replica at the lighthouse.
Yeah, that's good. That's the right thing to do,
I
right?
shouldn't have said it on, but that's a one of a kind.
You can't have that, no. You needed a place that's climate controlled too.
And
That's
it's
the-
climate controlled, and it's got.
Acid-free paper, it's all that.
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I'm struggling to remember, I heard Joe Gaviola, the
Yes.
lighthouse keeper, speak about, didn't he go to an auction?
Yes.
What was it that he repurchased?
He
Or he,
bought that at an auction. We were tipped off that it was gonna come up. And I have no idea who owned it. Maybe Joe remembers who, but anyway, it came up for auction. And when he went there, they knew that he was there to buy it. And Joe called me and he said, "What's my limit?" I said, "Get it. There is no limit."
it's good to be the
And
treasurer.
fortunately, the people were kind to him. They didn't,
Juice it up on them, yeah.
And then I took it to the Folger Library, where they had a conservator, a paper conservator.
Conservator, yeah,
And
right?
while I was there, the man showed me what he was working on, Medici papers. What had happened was they had diaries, and the ink they used ate the paper. So he was restoring the paper and putting on ink on it that would not eat the paper.
Gosh, that's amazing.
And so I showed him our document, and it had some torn edges and so forth. And actually, they recreated a knockoff. The only way you can tell the difference is the original has a crease in it, and the knockoff, it doesn't have that.
Yeah, but when you stored it, you took the crease, you stored it flat.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't want, because the crease is eventually gonna tear, and then you have two pieces, yeah, right.
but we were very fortunate. I think it cost us $200 or $300 to have him
Oh, yeah. it's worth
conserve it
yeah.
and make a knockoff and so forth.
It's great that you have it,
Yeah,
goodness,
they
it's
got
just
it.
amazing.
And you're right, it doesn't belong in the White House, the lighthouse, you got a replica there, yeah.
And we also had the original document, which created the possibility that Washington could build a lighthouse. It was an act of Congress,
Wow.
and we have the original. And I found out while I was at the Folger Library that, for example, the Bill of Rights that the Congress adopted, they made 13 copies of everything, because there were 13 states. There wasn't just one copy.
Right, that's super.
And so this document that gave Washington the authorization to build it, there were 13 copies of that. We have an original of it.
Well, great.
We have a few minutes left, but is there anything that you two might know that would be a surprise to people that maybe they wouldn't know about this area? That you would like to, maybe you'd like to share it, but maybe it's
Well,
something.
how about rules and regulations? Do you know that if you came here in 1657, Lion Gardner was appointed to come to your house to make sure you had a ladder that went to the top of your roof, so they could check whether the chimney was daubed, meaning because it was straw, and then you had to put this cake stuff around it so you wouldn't start a fire. Do you know they had regulations on how long your fence could be, how high it could be? You couldn't sell land to anybody else without permission of the town. So everybody, you think there are a lot of rules and regulations today, we had them years ago.
Wow,
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's in the town, the reason I know this, it's in the town records. All right, you couldn't have your cattle wandering all over the place, they would take them and put them in a pen. So see, things were done the same years ago, and they didn't build along the beach years ago. That was the most foolish thing you could do, is build a place along the beach. I
Right.
mean, they put huts down there during the fishing season, but it wasn't a home, it was the storage of the equipment. I think that's the thing everybody should know. That's my point. You got 2 minutes, go ahead.
My father was born in the village of East Hampton, and he would say about people building on the ocean, what a damn fool to build there. And so that was prevalent in his thinking, that you don't build on the ocean.
Is there someplace special or something that you can think of, Dick, that you might want to share with
No.
us? You're keeping everything to yourself.
He has to be on the next show.
Yeah.
Is there anything coming up, maybe with the Historical Museum or?
Yeah, you know what's coming up? The town, has been working very hard fixing up Second House. And we're coming very close to the
Okay.
completion. I went through it the other day and it looks fabulous inside. It really does.
So it's the house, not the barn.
Well, that's gonna be a project. We have to take it down and put it back up because it's in bad shape. But the house is coming close to completion and it's gonna be a spectacular thing to go visit.
And this town has Bob Hefner in it.
In the house?
No, Robert Hefner, the architectural historian.
Right,
We have him in our town. He works here.
right.
And a lot of places don't have someone like Robert Hefner.
Oh, that's a very special
No, he's
skill.
very special.
For
Specialized, right? He's been
sure.
working down there a long time, hasn't he? Huh?
Yeah, Bob and I worked together when we first took over the lighthouse.
Yeah.
I want to say a huge thank you
Oh, well, thank
to
you.
both you, Mr. King, and also Mr. White. You've been just a treasure trove of information today. I'd like to do a big thank you as well to LTV for giving us this opportunity. And I like to end with the two of you, just, it's lovely to have the Monikers and the Mariners in the same space.
Oh, okay.
And sharing all this,
Well, that's a
this
good
wonderful
point.
knowledge. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest
Well,
of your day.
thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you very much for
Yeah.
inviting us.
We don't get invited anyplace else, so we're lucky.